Hello everyone, welcome back to the Coding Explorer. This is Pradyumna and let us continue our exploration on the world of software. Before we begin, I hope that you watched my last video on functions in Python. So let me give you the answer for the homework. If you remember, I had asked you to create a function to get the number of vowels in a string and call it after getting the string from the user. So let us just try it. So let us begin. I'll create a new Python file named homework.py. So let us start. First we'll just create the function def. So we are defining def get no vowels. So then we get the text. So let us just create a list which contains all the vowels that are there. So vowels is equal to list of, so we know it is A, E, I, O and U. So we have all the vowels. So this will be a global variable, that is a variable that is that can be used in the whole program. And if you create a local variable, that is if you put this over here, then it's called local variable because it cannot be used anywhere other than this in this function. So if you try to use it outside it, you'll not be able to use. So let us just keep it outside. So we can make different variables and we can keep the requirements as we want. So now we have it. So just we have to use the global variable. So let us just give global vowels. So you need not actually give global at the point where you're actually using it just to get it or use it. But if you're altering a variable, then you have to always give global vowels. So if we are not altering it, we need not take it. So let us begin. For letter in the text, so we iterate to whatever text, all the letters that are there in the text that is there. Then after that we check if, so we have to check if it matches any of these letters. So and we need to also have another variable called number vowels is equal to 0. So here you can see that this is a local variable because you need not give the number of vowels outside this. And also when you use a local variable, every time this function is called, it will come back to 0. So for if for letter in text, for vowel in vowels, so we have the vowels, we iterate to the vowels. After iterating through the text, then we check if letter is equal to the vowel. So if they are equal, that is after iterating, so if we have ABC, it will check A and it will check if A lies in any of these. So if it's any of these, then it'll just add the number of vowels. So number of vowels plus is equal to 1. So after all this, we need to just return this because we'll be creating a function that gives back. So this is the function that we created. Now we have to also make the function work. So we take text is equal to input, enter the word. So we take the text from the user, then we get number vowels is equal to get number vowels of text. So here you can see that this number vowels that's outside is a global variable because it can be used anywhere in the program. but this number of vowels inside this function is a local variable because it can only be used in this function. So we get the number of vowels, this function iterates and checks and it gives back the number of vowels, which is stored in this variable called number vowels. So we just print the number of vowels are plus string of vowels. Enter the word. I'll just give umbrella. So you have 3 because 1, 2 and 3. So I hope you understood how to use this. If you have any doubt, you can also put it in the comment section. Let us begin with our trace class. So we'll be learning about classes in Python. But what are classes? Classes are blueprint or template to create an object. So if you remember, we had used the functions such as lists, we had used tuples and then strings. So strings, tuples, lists are all classes. So they store data and they have some functions such as, if you remember, we had sort in lists. So they're used to implement real life objects. So you could see that we could create something that could be used. So we learn how it can be a real life object as we learn further. So to create a class, as we know, we need to first create it. So if we don't have a class called list, we'll not be able to use it. So we'll create our own class and then we'll learn how to use it and make changes in it. Then an instant of a class is nothing but an actual representation of class. So lists, tuples and strings are just the classes. You cannot directly use them. So we need to have to create a list, if you remember. So if we give fruits and we give in brackets all the fruits, the fruits variable which we had was actually the instance of the list class. So they also classes provide data security. So we'll understand how they provide data security as we learn about them, because in the if we use classes, we store data inside the class. So each class will have their own data. So it's like global and local, as you remember, but here you cannot go for global, it will always be local. So data will not be floating in the program. So that means that you cannot use a data in some class in another class. So let us learn more about classes. So let us learn how to create a class. It means that you make the blueprint that contains all the data and the functions. So if you have a class called list, it will have the data, that is all the lists, all the objects or elements that we had, and then we had different functions such as sort, get. All those functions will be defined in this class. So the syntax for it is class. We give the class name, which it should be in camel case most of the time, and then we give all the variables that are there and also the functions. So if you remember, last class we had learned about functions. So I had told you that we use def to define a function, so that we'll be using inside this class. So that function will only can be used by this class. We cannot use it outside the class. So let us understand how to create an instance of a class. As I said, an instance is nothing but a real life object that is there of the class. So if you remember, as I told, that fruits, the list of fruits as the variable, is an object that contains the real life implementation of the list class. So the syntax, if you remember, was variable that we have, but here instead of brackets or anything, because they are all defined already in Python and it uses, we are going to do it a little differently. We'll give variable is equal to class name that we have already given, and then we give these brackets. So we create an instance of it. So you can imagine it as a so you can imagine it as a blueprint of just an example as a house. So if you take this, you can create multiple blueprints, and with a single blueprint you can make different and build different of houses. So variables are objects, they are the real life things, but then classes are something that are already built and can be used and modified as per our wishes. So let us create a program. So we'll be creating a dog class that will sit, stand and do other thing that we tell, and it will also be given a name and it will have a breed. So it will be similar to this. So we create a class which has different variables that stores data and also has their own functions. So if you tell it to sit, it sits, and if you tell it again to sit, it says I'm already sitting, you cannot tell me to sit again. So this is how we'll do. So let us begin. Let me create a new project, class 9, classes. So here we are going to create a class called dog, which has all the functions and variables and the data that is there. But instead of creating the class here, it would be better if we create it in another file and use it over here, or else we'll have a very big code and it might make our code very hard to understand. So what we do is we create a new file, a Python file. So I'll just name it as dog. So since we are having only a single class inside a file, it's always convection, or developers do that because so that it can be oriented. So we give dog.py. So now we are gonna create a class called dog. So we have it as camel case convection and the first letter is also capital. So you can have it as per your wishes, but it's better to do like this. So we create a class called dog, then we define a function that's def init. So this init function is always called the moment it's creating the variable or the instance of the object. So here we will, before we create the object, we would also like to know some data from the creator. So we'll take the name of the dog for example. So but this has to be stored always. So what we do is we create self dot name is equal to name. So this self over here is used to give the self, that is the instance that is created is actually given over here. So whenever you create a function inside a class, you have to always have this self attribute, and then you are giving here self.name is equal to name, because this name will not always be stored. This is already only be stored while this function is running. After that it will not be stored inside this class. So what we do, we have to tell our own class that self.name. So we are telling the class that is there to set its name to be the name that is given. So self.name is equal to name. So we can take some additional parameters. So let us take the breed that is there. So self dot breed is equal to breed. So we take all of it and we store it. So now we took the information from the creator. Now we can create some additional functions. So if you remember, we were going to create the run function. So def run. Here also you have to always have self, but you need not have anything else because this is a normal function that does not take anything. So we give def run and then print running. So it would be good that after some time you tell the user that I have finished running. So like the dog itself tells that. So print finished running, but then it will come again the moment it says running. So what we do, you will use the time module. If you remember, we had used it, so we are going to use import time because we cannot directly use it. So import time, we have imported it, time dot sleep. So we give around 2 seconds. So after 2 seconds it says finished running. So we can create another function called def sit. So here we are going to do print sitting. It would also be better if we store a variable that stores if it's sitting or standing, so that if the user tells it to sit again, it tells I'm already sitting. So let's create that. So sit state is equal to, so let us just make it at the first point to be standing. So when the user tells it to sit, or the program itself tells it to sit, we just make it set that we are sitting, and we also set sit. We have to use the self because we are referring to the instance that is there. Self dot sit state is equal to sitting. Now let us create another function called stand. So again we will just do the same thing, but here what we are going to do is, instead of telling we are sitting, we say standing, and also we are going to say, we are going to set the self.sit state as standing. So we'll always be using this self because we are referring to the class that is there. So if you don't give that self, they will think that you're referring to the variable that's there inside this function. So we give self.sit state is standing, but as I told, we had to make sure that we were checking if we are standing or sitting. So we are going to check if self dot sit state is equal to sitting. So if it's sitting already, what we do is print I am already sitting. So you say I'm already sitting, and then we have to also return here, because you have to stop the function or else it'll go to the print sitting and it'll say that. So you stop it over here, and then also let us just make sure it comes here also. So here we make sure it's standing. I am already standing. So this is how it works. So if you have any doubt, let us just create the program and understand it. If you have any doubt after that, you can always send it in the comment section. So we come here. Now we have to create a dog. So we create a variable or an instance of the class. So we give d1 or dog. Since we can create multiple variables, we are going to give dog. But here you can see that it's an error because we are not we have not imported the or the file that is there. So we need to import. So if you remember, I had told that they are all files that are stored. So if we give print dog, that is, since the file is in one folder, this main.py and dog.py is in the same folder. If we give print import dog, it imports everything that is there over here into this. So if we give dog.dog, so this dog is actually the file that is there. So the class that is there will be dog.dog. So instead, to avoid this confusion, what we do is, instead of just importing it inside dog, we give from dog import dog. So what happens here is that we tell the program from the dog file import the dog class. So whatever dog class is there, it will actually get it and store it over here, and it will be in the form like it will be it is already there in the, it is already created by this. So let us just also import time. So here you can see that it's showing an error because we need to give the variables that were there. So if you see, first we had to give the name. So let us just give it as dog. You can give any name you want. I'll just give it as dog again. So the breed, I'll just give it as German Shepherd. So we create an instance of this variable. Now let us just run it and see how it works. So there's nothing that is an error, but what do we want to do? So we just will first give d1 dot run. So here you see that if we give d1 dot run, it tells the function run, it runs it, it does it, and shows how it works. So let's just run it. It's running. Now after that it says finish running. Now let us give other functions that are there. d1 dot, if you can see, sit. So let us check how it works. Sit. So we make it sit. Again, let's check how it works if we give d1 dot sit again. Running, then finish running, then we tell it to sit, it is sitting, but then again I tell it to sit, it is telling I'm already sitting. So what we do, we give d1 dot stand. Sitting, so it stood up, and again it sat down. So this is how it works. Now if we had to just get the variables that are there, so if we give print, so we can also create a function inside this such that it introduces itself. So we create a function called def introduce. So we'll have to take the self, so it'll just print so we need to give my name is plus self dot name. So what we do when this introduce function is called, so it takes the name of the instance that is there, and then it tells self dot name, it prints its name, then print I am of breed. So we give the breed that is there, self dot breed. So whatever is the breed, it gives that. Then we can also print I am, so self dot sit state. So here it tells if it's sitting, so it become I am sitting. If it's standing, it comes I am standing. So let us just first d1 dot introduce. So it is telling, so you can see that it is telling about itself. Then it ran, then again it finished after some time, and then it stood, it sat, then stood, and again sat. But it would be better that instead of us giving in the program, the class automatically prints about itself the moment it's created. So what we do here is, in the init function, as I told, it is called the moment the instance is being created, we give introduce. So we cannot directly give introduce, so we need to give self dot introduce. So it works like this only, because if you give introduce, you'll have to create a function inside this init. But if you're telling the self, which is the instance of this class, it'll introduce itself. So it introduces itself. Let us just run it. Run. So see, you can see that it is printing itself without us telling it to print it. Now let us just create another class, because as I told you, we can create multiple instances of by a single class. So dog of, I'll give it new name, new dog, comma, I'll make this golden retriever, so now since you have created this new class, let us see how it works. So we make d2 dot sit. Again, let us make d2 dot sit again. So we make it sit, and then let us just check how it runs. So the first dog introduces itself, then it runs. After I finish running, the next dog introduces itself, and then it sits, and then when I tell it to sit again, it tells I'm already sitting. So this is how it works. So you can create multiple instances of a single class. So this is how data is secure, because here you can see that dog 1 is actually standing while dog 2 is sitting. So all the data for each, you can have different data for different classes. So now let us understand how we can get the value of variables that are stored inside the class. So we give the instance that is there, d2 dot sit state. So if we give the variable that is there, it will return whatever is the variable, whatever it is there. So let us just, so print. So what we are going to do, we tell the user about the dog, it is sitting or it's standing. So print the, instead of giving dog 1 dog 2, what we are going to do is dog the d1, that is d1, that is our first dog, which is German Shepherd. We give d1 dot name, we tell d1 dot name the, so we get the variables value, that is if it's dog, it becomes the dog. So this is similar to how we use variables, but here we take the variable that's stored in a class. So the dog, so it will be the dog is, so if we tell the user if it's sitting or standing, so d1 dot sit state. Similarly, we can also tell if dog 2, the plus d2 dot name plus is plus d2 dot sit state. So here you can see that data is not floating throughout the program. It is always stored in this class only. So here what we can do is that we can change the names so that they are familiar. So I'll just give Golu and Molu. So let's run it. So it is telling its name, its breed, the first dog, and then the second dog introduces itself. We tell it what to do, and after that this prints out the statement. So the Golu is standing, the Molu is sitting. So here we made it stand, so it is at standing state. We can also actually edit the variables that are there. So if we give d1 dot sit state is equal to sitting, so we can also set the values. So let us run it and check. So here you can see that both of them are sitting. So this is how it works. We are going to learn about inheritance now. So let us understand about inheritance. So inheritance is nothing but a concept of using an already built class to create a new class that has all the methods and attributes. So methods and attributes are nothing but the functions, that is the methods, and attributes are the variables of the data, and parent class is nothing but if we we are building a new class and we have a class that is already there and we have to use it and add our own functions. The class that is already built and we are going to use that is called the parent class, and the new class that we are building is called the child class. So what we are gonna do is we create a new class that is having all the functions and the data of the parent class, and then it has its own. So it's an additional functions it has. So the syntax for this, it's the basic syntax is class. As remember, this is the same thing as a normal how we make a class, but here you can see that you put a parenthesis, and in this parenthesis you give the parent class that is there. So this is how you create it, because this is parentheses are known, used as constructors to create the new class using this already built class. Because if you cannot always copy paste everything that is there, because if you have a very big code, it is very hard and it takes a lot of time, and it also requires a lot of data for that. So what we do is we just take the already built-in class, and if we give it over here, all its data will be stored. To understand inheritance, we'll be creating another class that will contain a German Shepherd class that will also be able to jump, and it will also have the characteristics of the dog. So let us begin. I'll create a new Python file, name it as German Shepherd .py. So let us just give class. So as usual, I give German Shepherd, but here what we do, we give a brackets, and in the brackets we give the class that is already there, that is the dog. But before we use that, we have to import it or else it won't work. So again, if you remember, we have to do from dog import dog. So we import the dog class from the dog file. So German Shepherd, so we construct this dog class. So we extend this dog class, and it'll have all the functions of dog, and we can create additional functions. So we can give def jump. So here we are also gonna take another attributes from the user, asking about how much high we have to jump. So we take height, then print jumping, so jumping. We can also give how much height we are jumping plus, so we have to convert this into form of a string, because height will be in the form of a string. So jumping dash plus meter. So we could jump, and we'll just import time as you just to make it better. And what we do over here is we give we also set the state, set state. So here what we are going to do is make it jumping. So we make it jumping because when it's jumping, it's not sitting or standing. So here you can see that even when we have not given the attribute over here, it's already constructed and all the attributes are there. So now we are gonna give time dot sleep. So it depends on height, on how much high it jumps. So we can make it height divided by we can give 3. So about how much high it jumps, that much distance it covers. And another thing we're gonna do, so we override the function that is there, def init. So here we only take the name. So but since we're editing it, it'll have a problem because the dog class takes both name and breed. So what we do is we give super. So we are telling the main class that super dot init. We are also initting the class, so we are initializing it with the name that is there. But here what happens is that breed is given by us itself. So it will be German Shepherd. So this is how we do that. So after this we need not do anything, because everything after that will be handled by this, and it will set the name and all that over here. So let us just run and check how it works. But also here what we do is, instead of from dog import dog, we change it, or we can also create from German Shepherd import German Shepherd. So we import the German Shepherd class from this file. So instead of making another class of d2 as dog2, we can just let d1 be the normal dog, but this be a German Shepherd. We create a class. So here instead of this being, let us just make it golden retriever. So we give German Shepherd, we give the name as Molo. So here it will have additional functions, because you give d2 dot. So here you can see that there's a very function called jump, but here we have to also give the height, which should be in meters, and it should also be the number, which should also be an integer. So if we give that, it will perform. But here if you see that d1 does not have that function, because you can see that it does not have it, because d1 did not be created with it, but German Shepherd was created with that with this function, and along with all the functions in dog. So if we tell the German Shepherd to sit, that will also work. And also in the German Shepherd, after it is sitting, we have to change it, because we have to make it standing. Self dot sit state is equal to standing, because after it jumps, when it comes back, it has to stand and not be in the jumping state. So let us just run and check. So here you can see I am already standing. So this is for the first dog. So we create a new class So my name is Molu, so it is a German Shepherd. I am standing, so is sitting at the first because we gave d2.sit, then jumping, and it's jump for 1 meter. So this is how it works. If you have any doubt, please put it in the comment section, and please go through the code again to understand how classes work. Before you leave, let me tell you that all the code we did today is put up in GitHub, and I've provided the link to this GitHub repository in the description. So if you go to class 9 classes, you'll get all the code that we did. If you click on any of these files, you'll get the code. If you have any doubt or have any mistakes, you can always come here and check. So let me give you the homework. So you should create a class called car that should be able to accelerate, put brakes, and so on, and it should have a top speed above which its speed cannot go. So you should have a data such as speed, it should have its brand name and the model number. It should also have the top speed above which even if it's asked to accelerate, it cannot go. And then you have to create another class called Audi, which inherits the car class but has a fixed top speed. So the top speed that is also set, and it's increased a little bit. So you do not ask the user about the top speed, you automatically set it. So it's time for our fun fact. So let me tell you about the inheritance. So you can create as many classes you want that can be inherited from one another. So you can have class G, which is class B, and then you have class A. Again, you can have another class B, D, and it can go on for how many ever times you want. And you can also create multiple child for a single parent. So if you have class G, you can create class B and class E, which are inherited from this, and you can also create multiple for these also. So this is how inheritance works. So thank you everyone. Please learn, like, subscribe and share, and click on the bell button for my next videos. If you have any doubts, put it in the comment section below. I'll try to answer as fast as possible. We'll be learning about reading and writing files in Python.